Welcome to Dark Legends, where we uncover the mysteries that history tried to keep hidden. It was supposed to be a routine flight. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 departed from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, bound for Beijing. On board were 239 souls, passengers and crew from 14 different countries. But what began as a routine journey quickly turned into the world's greatest aviation mystery. Flight MH370 vanished without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions, shattered families, and a mystery that continues to haunt us to this day. Flight MH370, a Boeing 777-200ER, took off at 12:41 a.m. local time from Kuala Lumpur. The flight was expected to last 6 hours, landing in Beijing at 6:30 a.m. The captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, was an experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours. The first officer, Fariq Abdul Hamid, was younger but had a solid track record. The passengers were a mix of nationalities, including 152 Chinese nationals, 50 Malaysians, and others from around the world. For the first 40 minutes, everything appeared normal. The flight climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. At 1:19 a.m., Captain Zahari checked in with Malaysian Air Traffic Control, acknowledging the handoff to Vietnamese airspace. His words, "Good night, Malaysian 370," would be the last communication anyone would hear from the cockpit. Just 2 minutes later, the plane's transponder, which sends location and altitude data to the air traffic control, was switched off. The aircraft then made a sharp turn to the west, flying back over the Malay Peninsula before disappearing from radar altogether. The mystery had begun. At first, air traffic controllers were unsure what had happened. Flights sometimes lose contact briefly, and controllers assumed the plane would reappear on radar. But as minutes turned into hours, it became clear that something had gone terribly wrong. By 2:40 a.m., Malaysian Airlines had issued an alert, and by dawn, search and rescue operations were underway. A massive search operation was launched, involving 26 countries and covering a vast area of the South China Sea. The initial focus was on the area where the plane was last seen on radar. But as the hours passed with no sign of debris, the search area expanded rapidly. The world watched in disbelief as day after day, the search yielded nothing. As the days turned into weeks and then months, without any sign of MH370, theories began to emerge. Experts and amateurs alike speculated on what could have happened. Was it a catastrophic technical failure, a hijacking, or something more sinister? Some believed that the plane suffered a sudden technical failure, such as a fire or a loss of cabin pressure, rendering the crew unconscious and leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. But the deliberate turn to the west suggested human intervention. Could it have been hijacked? Or was the pilot himself responsible? Captain Zahari came under intense scrutiny. Investigators discovered that he had practiced flying a route similar to the one MH370 took on his home flight simulator. Was this a sign of premeditation? Some theorized that Zahari might have been depressed or suicidal, leading him to deliberately crash the plane. But without solid evidence, these theories remained speculative. Another theory suggested that the plane was hijacked by terrorists. There had been no distress call, but could the crew have been overpowered quickly and silently? However, no credible group claimed responsibility, and no evidence of a hijacking was ever found. One of the more unusual theories was the idea of a remote hijacking. Some speculated that the plane's controls could have been taken over by someone on the ground using advanced technology. But again, there was no evidence to support this theory. The search for MH370 initially focused on the South China Sea, where the plane was last seen on radar. But as days passed with no sign of wreckage, attention turned to the possibility that the plane had continued flying for several hours after losing contact. Satellite data from the British company Inmarsat provided a critical clue. Although the plane's transponder was off, it continued to ping a satellite every hour. These pings were used to calculate an arc of possible locations where the plane might have ended up. This led search teams to focus on a remote area of the southern Indian Ocean, thousands of miles from the plane's original flight path. The new search area was one of the most remote places on Earth, with rough seas and deep ocean floors. The search involved advanced sonar equipment, underwater drones, and months of painstaking work. But despite these efforts, the main wreckage of MH370 remained elusive. In July 2015, over a year after the plane disappeared, a piece of debris washed up on the shores of Reunion Island, off the coast of Africa. The debris, identified as a flaperon from a Boeing 777, was confirmed to be from MH370. This discovery provided the first tangible evidence that the plane had indeed gone down in the Indian Ocean. But it raised more questions than answers. For the families of the 239 passengers and crew, the disappearance of MH370 was an unimaginable tragedy. The uncertainty of not knowing what had happened to their loved ones was devastating. Many criticized Malaysia Airlines and the Malaysian government for their handling of the crisis, accusing them of withholding information and failing to communicate effectively. The families were left in a painful limbo, caught between hope and despair. Some held on to the belief that their loved ones might still be alive, while others sought closure through memorials and remembrance ceremonies. But without concrete answers, their grief was compounded by a deep sense of injustice. Despite their grief, many of the families became vocal advocates for transparency and accountability. They organized protests, demanded independent investigations, and called for improvements in aviation safety. Their fight for answers continues to this day. More than 7 years have passed since MH370 vanished, yet the mystery remains unsolved. What caused the plane to deviate from its flight path? Why did the transponder and other communication systems stop working? And most importantly, where is the rest of the plane? One of the most perplexing aspects of the case is the series of satellite pings that track the plane's movements for hours after it lost contact. The analysis of these pings suggests that the plane flew on autopilot for several hours before running out of fuel and crashing into the ocean. But the reasons for this course of action remain unclear. Theories abound, but without the black boxes, which contain the cockpit voice recorder and a flight data recorder, we may never know what happened in those final moments. The search for answers continues, with new technologies being developed to explore the deep ocean floor and improve real-time tracking of aircraft. In the years following the disappearance, several pieces of debris, believed to be from MH370, have been found on beaches along the Indian Ocean. The most significant of these is the flaperon, discovered on Reunion Island in July 2015. This debris provided the first confirmation that MH370 had indeed crashed into the Indian Ocean. Other pieces of debris have since been discovered, including parts of the wing and cabin interior. Each piece has been carefully examined and verified as belonging to MH370. These discoveries have helped to narrow down the search area, but the main wreckage remains elusive. Scientists have used ocean drift models to trace the likely path of the debris from the crash site to the shores of Africa. This has provided valuable clues to where the main wreckage might be located, but the vastness of the search area and the depth of the ocean make the task incredibly challenging. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 remains one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. It has sparked endless speculation, inspired new technologies, and led to changes in how we track and manage flights. But for the families of those on board, it is a tragedy that has left a permanent scar. As the search continues, we must remember the 239 lives lost and the families who are still waiting for answers. The story of MH370 is not just a tale of a missing plane. It is a human story of loss, hope, and the relentless pursuit of truth. May we one day find the answers we seek and bring closure to those who have suffered. Until then, the mystery of Flight MH370 remains unsolved, a poignant reminder of how much we still don't know about our world. Thanks for joining. Like, comment, and subscribe.